Okay. All right. So let me just tell you a little bit about the ladies that we have on the phone today. Again, my name is Carlene Haynes. I'm the Chief of Community Relations here at Partners Health Plan. And we are excited to have some speakers with us today in regard to our mental wellness series for the Learning Table. And we have Laura May Grabo and Janet Bamgabade here with us as speakers. And just to tell you a little bit about Laura, Laura has a BA in psychology from UNC Greensboro, and worked as a treatment coordinator working with children, adolescents, and adults in inpatient psych hospital settings in North Carolina, and also has a master's degree in social work from Rutgers, and worked as a case manager on home and community-based waiver programs for DD individuals also in Texas. About 12 years ago, Laura moved to New York City and has immersed herself in managed care, working with managed long-term care programs as a field social worker, a care manager, and just admitting folks, and a social worker. And during this time, Laura has also worked gaining experience in supportive housing for the mentally ill, and worked as a clinical supervisor prior to coming to PHP in last year in October 2019. Janet is a licensed clinical social worker and is a young, eccentric African therapist who has tremendous experience in both individual and group counseling. She's also one of the supervisors within the New York City region for PHP's Care Coordination Department. She's a graduate of Columbia University School of Social Work and has worked with an array of individuals and families within the community. She's done a lot of work advocating for aging older adults, and focused on greater social and economic justice, and utilizing evidence-based approaches such as cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness practices, family sculpting, including trauma, substance abuse, and grieving. So Jenna has a lot of experience providing counseling, both on a group and individual level, and is a professional who's focused on conflict resolution, building client rapport, supporting colleagues, and team collaboration. Her motto is define yourself as opposed to being defined by others, which we definitely sums up Janet. Janet aspires to incorporate a holistic approach, mind, body, spirit, into all of her sessions. So we're very happy to have these two ladies with us today, as decorated as they are, and their varied experience, and in talking to us about emotional wellness during the holidays, and just in general, but of course, particularly this month, with everything we all have going on, and looking back and reflecting on 2020 and looking ahead to 2021. So I am, again, welcoming you all to the presentation, and I'll be controlling the slides today. So I'm going to throw it now over to Janet, who can perhaps just give us an overview of what today's discussion is, and start the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carlene, for the introduction. We really appreciate it. Thank you for having myself and Laura today help to present in PHP's Learning Table of Emotional Wellness during the holidays. As Carly mentioned, we are a big advocate for not just your own physical needs at PHP, but we're also advocating for mental health and emotional wellness as well. So during today's Learning Table discussion, we will be focusing on aspects of emotional wellness, which includes the background, environmental affects, emotional affects, physical affects, and seasonal affects, and as well as holiday wellness, in conjunction with talking about and speaking about ways of coping. So utilizing personal strategies, also positive talk, and incorporating physical wellness, and also providing an array of information for our PHP members, as well as general information that you can receive from various sites about emotional wellness, and especially during the holidays. Okay, so it's going to move on to the next slide. Okay, perfect. So sometimes we the big question is, what is mental health, right? And what is emotional health? So essentially, mental health also includes our emotional, our psychological, and social well-being. Mental health is really, and your emotional health really helps to function in your everyday life. So sometimes we try to separate the two, but both of them in tandem work hand in hand to ensure that we're actually living the best quality life that we want. And this is essentially finding ways where you are accepting yourself, accepting others, expressing and managing your emotions, as well as dealing with the demands and changes in everyday life that can either affect your mental or your emotional health. A question that we have posed for our group today is, what do you think it's important to have a good mental and emotional health? Everyone has various aspects that contribute to your mental and emotional health. So that's one thing to really think about as we work through today's presentation is, why do you think it's important to have good mental and emotional health, and really ensuring that that kind of aligns with the day to day and your purpose in life and what you really want to do as you are, going through the stresses of life, and you're also managing with work, but also your intimate and your interpersonal relationships as well.
I'm gonna step out to the mall. I'll be right back.
Okay. So some clinical terms.
Oh no, to Bay Plaza. I need to return some stuff. Do you wanna come? Of course. Oh,
If
yes.
someone can just mute their mic, I'm sorry, I'm going to. Okay, wonderful. So these are some clinical terms, some common terms associated and used within the mental health field, such as depression, generalized anxiety disorder, seasonal affect disorder, mood disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and eating disorders. These are some generalized terms that you might hear of in regards to, mental and emotional health. And some associated symptoms that come with these clinical terms are aches in your body, your headaches, cramps, your digestive problems, eating too much or also eating too little, not eating enough, loss of interest in certain things, problems with concentrating or remembering information, trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, as well as maybe sleeping too much. It can either be one of the two spectrums, in addition to expressing feelings of various guilt or worthlessness or even hopelessness. Surprisingly, 38% of Americans report stress levels increasing over the holiday season. These are conditions that might cause around with stress and fatigue, and some unrealistic expectations over, commercialization, financial stress, different stresses that add into some of the clinical terms that we discussed previously. And also just reminding yourself that, if you're not feeling okay, it is okay not to feel okay. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of mask these things because of some personal expectations or even societal expectations. Some symptoms that are associated with this diagnosis also show itself during the holiday season when it's more peak and high stress. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. So with emotion, well, environmental aspects, all things, all of these things are things that we cannot control, nor are in control, in regards to what we're feeling. So these are environmental things that are essentially out of your scope, such as um, environmental changes around us that we have much of an impact on our emotional wellness. So it might be the seasons that are changing, some things happening in our interpersonal lives that we cannot control. These are some things that are happening around us that really impact how we are feeling, not just mentally, but also emotionally. Social isolation is one of the biggest ones as well. Some people may have a small social circle or a lack of opportunities for socialization. People who are having feelings of disconnectedness also avoid social interactions around the holiday season. So unfortunately, withdrawing oftentimes makes others feel a sense of loneliness, and symptoms of depression usually worsen. Another environmental aspect is grieving and loss of a loved one. Some people may be more aware of a loss or a loved one during the holiday seasons. And holiday season is a reminder of that loss of that individual that used to be in your life and is no longer there. And then also an environmental aspect is a change in this your scenic environment. So right now, a lot of us are working remotely, and usually around the the holiday seasons, it's a removal of our routine working remotely. So typically, if you're commuting from your home and you're going into the city or you're going around your neighborhood, you're no longer seeing those holiday decorations in your community, whether it's lights in a neighborhood or it's commercialized decorations in your favorite local store, your local cafe. Not seeing a lot of those typical things around the holiday season really starts to impact your emotional and your mental health and your wellness. And those are all just the scenic environmental things that we just cannot control. And being in a different environment and a different space can add to that emotional well-being around the holidays as well. So I feel bad. Typically, a lot of people come into treatment because they say they're feeling bad and they want to change this feeling. And that's typically what I first hear. And the first thing you figure out is, trying to identify where is the feeling coming from. After all, it's really, to set out to change a feeling and you don't really know how it's created. And your emotional affect is what you're just feeling in the inside and you're trying to put some words together. So some common feelings that you might be experiencing are sadness and anxiety and fear and stress. And stress is usually heightened around the holiday season. So it's always good to identify and say, what am I feeling that I can put maybe words to emotions, and really just trying to understand the root of that. So knowing that your feelings at first are going to start, and that's something that you want to hone in on and ensure that you can have a conversation with someone and just identify what you're feeling and where it's coming from. So physical aspects, understanding that typically our thoughts lead to emotions, which essentially leads to our physical and our active behaviors. So in addition to emotional changes and feelings, thoughts can also lead to that physical sensation that we feel as well. They're oftentimes called this physiological sensation or a body response. So this is something that our body is reacting to because there's an emotional or a mental feeling. And some physiological sensations are a lump in your throat, feelings of hot and cold, weakness, blurred vision, even diarrhea and nausea. Those are all physical symptoms that our body is responding to when we're emotionally feeling something. Your emotional wellness is just as essential as your physical health. Taking care of your mind and your spirit is connected to that physical well-being. And sometimes we don't really attribute both to one another because we're saying, well, maybe I'm just feeling sick today or I'm feeling anxious about something. But that essentially is kind of a red flag and a marker to say there's something else going on emotional wise, right? What can I tap into to make sure that I am understanding that? Is it something that's connecting from my emotions, or is it something that's connecting from my mental? Am I overthinking something? Am I feeling something? And then am I exhibiting these kind of physiological response in a physical manifestation of it? Okay. And then seasonal affect disorder is also something that's really associated during the holiday season and around mental health and well-being. So seasonal affect disorder is a type of mood disorder that's related to the changes or happenings at the same time in a different season. So SAD can actually happen during the spring and the summer times as well, not just winter. Yet most of the SAD factors are more common during winter time. So approximately, I want to say 500,000 people in the United States will suffer for some form of a winter seasonal affect disorder. And that's usually around 10 to 20% are usually more of a mild form during the winter blues. 3/4 of people who suffer from seasonal affect disorder are women, and the depression usually starts in early adulthood. Seasonal affect disorder can also occur in children and adolescents as well. And typically older adults who are usually the age of 65 and older are less likely to experience seasonal affect disorder. So it's always kind of something good to keep in mind. Some causes of seasonal affect disorder are your biological clock. So this might mean a reduction in sunlight, from fall to winter. Usually when our clock goes backwards, the time is changing, and also, the environment is changing. So it gets darker very quickly. It's a winter onset, and a decrease in sunlight may also interrupt your internal clock. So for me, when I'm looking at the window at 5 p.m., it's no longer looks like daytime, it's dark. And that can start to affect your emotional well-being, and you can start exhibiting some symptoms of depression. And also serotonin levels. So a drop in your serotonin level is basically a brain chemical that affects your mood. And this might play a role into seasonal affect disorder. Reduced sunlight may cause you to feel a trigger of depression in addition to your melatonin level. So a lot of people understand melatonin as something that's produced in your body for sleeping. So a change in your melatonin level could also change your sleeping pattern. This can contribute to some of the things we spoke about earlier pertaining to sleeping too much or sleeping too little. And those are all affects in regards to how you're really ensuring that you are processing yourself during the day. So I'm really recommending, indoor activities that can bring some lighting, maybe opening up your space if you have the capacity to do so, to bring some light during the daytime, and really just trying to, if you're unable to get outside because it's darker, it's later, and you might live alone, or you're not having the ability to access certain things that you would when it was lighter or summer or springtime, really looking at those activities that bring you joy. Some things that are associated with seasonal affect disorder. Helen, if you could just go to the next slide. Okay, so if you're not feeling well, some things that we recommend with seasonal affect disorder, if you're feeling a couple of those symptoms, is really making sure that you reach out to your PCP, whoever your primary care physician or your doctor that you typically would see, just to kind of go over a couple of the concerns that you have. So those common symptoms of oversleeping, your appetite is changing, there's some irritability or trouble concentrating, or even weight gain and fatigue. These are kind of some signs that would say, something is not right. So the next thing is going to go see your provider. It's normal to have some days where you're feeling down and you're blue, but you're having more of these days rather than normal, then this is definitely a flag to go see your physician and see your doctor. Your doctor would be the right person to consult with to ensure that they're giving you the proper treatment. Some treatments that are associated with some seasonal affect disorder is light therapy. So the idea behind light therapy is to replace the sunshine that you're missing during the day with some form of light in your space that would kind of compensate for those winter and fall seasons where there's not a lot of sunlight. So you're sitting in front of a light therapy box maybe every morning or afternoon to get some kind of daily exposure to some bright and artificial light. This in combination with maybe therapy or medications for your physician, depending on what they're recommending, might work. Everyone's different. So it's really important that you hone into what you're feeling and really identify, what are the things that are causing me to feel this way, and is it long enough that I need to reach out to my doctor? And your doctor would be the best one to help to work in conjunction with you to really subscribe to the things that you need that might get you better. Might be a combination of all three or just a combination of one, but it's a trial and error to just make sure that you get back to some form of a baseline.
Janet, I have a question. Just talking about time change. Does that happen a lot where, for example, during the time change in daylight savings, for example, when it stays darker longer or gets darker earlier, that sort of light that you say, I think you see sort of a change in folks' mood with the time changes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's our body is, going back to a couple slides ago, we talked about your biological clock, right? Your body is kind of programmed to move on a certain basis. So if you're an early riser, you're getting up, you're used to seeing maybe the sun or breaking into the sun, and then you're used to coming home at a certain time. And there's kind of like a routine that you have. And the sun and your environment really plays a big part in your daytime. You can tell when it's high peak, when the sun is high, or sunset. And sometimes having that removal really starts to change your emotions and your feelings, right? It's kind of like a trigger for a feeling of sadness or depression. And when the time changes, that time that you would typically see the sunset, at that 5 p.m., 6 o'clock time when you're coming home from school or from work or, from volunteering, when that's no longer there, that period of time, your body's missing it. And there's something of a gap in that space. So having that time change plays a big difference, especially during the winter months, but it also plays a difference during the spring and the summertime because your body has gotten so accustomed to now creating a new schedule and a routine that when it drastically shifts back, your body is now trying to play some form of a catch up. So it's always good to check in with yourself during those peak seasons throughout the year where not just the season and the weather is changing, but the time is also changing. That's an hour that you're missing either going forward or you're backwards, and your body's playing catch up. And sometimes there might be a lag in there, and your body might react in that physiological sensation, or it might react in an emotional feeling where you're feeling more blue. And it's just really important to pay attention to that. There's some days where you're gonna feel sad. We're all human, and that's a human trait. But if it lasts longer than normal, then those are those times where you really need to see your physician.
And maybe affecting also like sleep patterns and things like that, like you
Yes.
said. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You're sleeping too much, you're sleeping too little. All of that really plays a big part, from the weather, the sun, and the timing as well. So going back to holiday wellness, here's some, really important key points to really ensure that you are paying attention to your emotional and your mental health during the holidays. So the first part is just really acknowledging your feelings. If someone close to you has recently, passed away, or you can't be with your loved ones, this year has been very trying for most, and the holiday season has been different. And I think this is a point to realize that it's normal to feel sad and also to have some grief. It's okay to take that time to be upset and feel what you're feeling and process that in order to express your feelings. During this time, you can't really force yourself to be happy just because it's the holidays. That's an expectation that not many expect to do, and it's unrealistic. So giving yourself that time to process and feel and acknowledge your feelings plays a big role in really understanding your mental health and your emotional wellness during the holidays. Another portion is, reaching out. If you're feeling lonely, you're feeling isolated, seek out into your community, go out to seeking support from maybe whoever is in your religious pillar that's in your community, other social events that are permittable. They can also offer a sense of support and companionship. Also volunteering, your time, it helps you to be exposed to others, and it also gives you a way to lighten your spirits and also broaden your horizon and also broaden your friendship level. This is a great way of connecting with people in your community if it's permittable, social distancing, and really having some form of a fellowship and reaching out to those within your community that can support you. Another aspect is just being realistic. The holidays don't have to be perfect just because, you felt like it was last year. As families change and things are growing and traditions and rituals are often changing as well, those are things that we have to kind of be mindful of. Every year will bring something different. So choosing to hold on to maybe a few of those rituals and traditions, but also being open to creating new ones. In certain circumstances, you might be able to find new ways of celebrating with your family together. So situations such as maybe sharing pictures or emails or videos, something that will bring your family joy in a different, set of expectations, and being realistic with what we have in the now. And then setting aside maybe differences, trying to accept family and family members and friends as who they are. Even though they might not live up to your expectations, honoring them for showing up, right? Setting aside grievances until maybe a later appropriate time for a more discussion. Being understanding that if others get upset or are feeling distressed when something goes wrong, most of the time or by any chance, they're also feeling the affects of the seasonal stress and depression as well. So I think this is a great time to give each other some grace. I know that not everything needs to be rectified in the now, and knowing that we're all kind of feeling these stresses as well. And that might be helpful to ensure that your holiday wellness is, prioritized, understanding, setting aside differences. And then also learning to say no. I'm a big advocate of, boundaries and ensuring that your mental health comes first, but saying yes when you really want to say no, can leave you in a situation of feeling not just resentful, but also overwhelmed. Friends and colleagues, they will understand if you cannot participate in every activity or every project. If it's not possible to say no to some obligations, maybe through work or family, maybe looking at ways to kind of rearrange your agenda and set aside time for yourself so you can address the things that need to be addressed, but also have some time for yourself as well. And then this kind of segues into taking a break. Making sure that you're giving time to spend with yourself, even if that's spending 15 minutes alone without any distraction. It's a set of, it's a kind of an opportunity to press that refresh button and that restart button, and giving you a chance to just handle everything that you need to do. So that might be a combination of taking a walk, reflecting, listening to your favorite music, and doing something that brings you some peace and joy, even if it's just for 15 minutes. So essentially it's finding something that's going to reduce your stress level, and it's going to help you clear your mind. Finding something that's going to, help you be in a space where you have some of your sanity restored. So that can also include slow breathing exercising, really incorporating some of those mindfulness exercises even if it's just 15 minutes out of your day. And then lastly, when all else fails, seek help. It's absolutely okay to say, I'm not feeling well. I've tried a numerous of things and combinations and they're not working. So despite your best efforts, if you find yourself still feeling sad, still feeling anxious, and you're feeling unable to sleep, and you're also feeling irritable or hopeless, if this is a feeling that's lasting for a long period of time, you definitely want to talk to your doctor and speak to your professional, your mental health professional. This is a time where if you're trying everything and you've looked at options, you've taken some time for yourself and you're still not feeling good, this is a very important moment to just check in with yourself and making sure that you and your mental health and your emotional well-being is the number one priority.
Janet, ladies, we have a quick question. Daisy's asking, could you just expand a little bit more on the light therapy? Is that
Yeah,
so? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So light therapy is usually something that's utilized during or for those who are suffering from seasonal affect disorder. And basically, it's once you speak to your doctor, if they identify that this is an appropriate type of therapy for you, essentially it's a light box. It's not that big, it's kind of small, and something that projects artificial light through it. So it's basically replacing that kind of sensation that you would get if you walk outside or there's a sun. So you might be in a space, and everyone lives in different environments where you don't have access to, a bright surface area. So you might be living in an apartment or with a roommate, and you're not getting those opportunities, or you might have a job that's an inside job and you're never really out and about. I know for our field, we're typically in the field, so we get that sunshine. But when you're working remotely from home and it's colder outside, and it's you're in the midst of a pandemic and it's not easy to go outside, or you might have other life obligations. Many are working with their children from home, doing remote learning. There's so many things that are happening. Not having that sense of sunlight also impacts your mood and emotions. So light therapy is something that your physician will give to you, and you're basically sitting in front of a light box and you're getting that artificial light exposure. And in conjunction with maybe psychotherapy services or maybe light medication, depending on the severity of your diagnosis, your doctor will then be able to speak more in tangent with you. I hope that helps to answer your question, Daisy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Janet. I'm also wondering, not to put any of the nurses on the spot, maybe we could talk about it later or look at it, but vitamin D, right? And then if vitamin D deficiencies, also that physical effect, like you're saying, Janet, affects your mood because you're not getting that light. So let's go back to, bring us back to, I believe we were at this next slide, ways to cope.
Yeah. Hi, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today, because one of the things that Jen has identified is a lot of the reasons and the background on why we feel the way we do around this time of year. And so what's important for us now is to identify some really healthy ways to cope through this time of challenges that we endure. So some of the things that, the first point that I'd like to talk about is bringing in new traditions. More than ever, when routines and normalcy just need to be adjusted, initiating new patterns and ways to celebrate is needed. We need to think about different types of ways to welcome happiness or welcome a different kind of happiness into our lives. And so we have to embrace trying new things and doing things not the traditional way that we've been doing them for a while. So certainly just embracing new traditions. Another component of just in terms of a personal strategy to help you cope through this time is incorporating hobbies and interests that bring you joy. Remembering the importance of those activities and things that you love, you bring into your daily life, no matter what they are, whether it's, going outside, whether it's playing with your children, whether it's engaging in, any kind of, crafting or reading or anything that brings us just sheer joy. Those are the things that we want to make sure that we take the time out for, and we incorporate this these things into our here and now. So that may offset some of the challenges and struggles that we may feel at this time. Finally, just being grateful and focusing on positive events in your life. I know sometimes this is very hard to do when the times and challenges in our life just bring us down. And sometimes it takes an event like hearing a sad story or a catastrophic event to help you remember how to be grateful and focus on all the positive things going on in your life. What helps sometimes is just looking at pictures or looking at or staying engaged with friends and people in your life to talk and rehash and elaborate on those happy times. And those are what we want to keep at the front and center when we're feeling when we're feeling down and out. So certainly being grateful and remembering the here and now will help us keep a positive mind frame. So going on and continuing on ways to cope with personal strategies, planning and prioritizing, committing to a specific path, and making decisions that will assist you with moving forward to feel more at peace. I think that this is very important. Planning and strategizing is very important. It takes time to prepare for an event, and preparation for these events will help you alleviate a lot of the stress, anxiety around the event. So taking the time, if you know that it's a stressful event or something stressful or something, challenging is coming up on the way, allotting yourself the time, giving yourself some time back to plan for that event. Also, thinking positively. Optimism and positive thinking are related to improved mental and physical well-being. And one of the things that is important to realize here is positive thinking is very difficult to do at times when we're in stress or we're very anxious. And so what's important to consider here is just reducing the negative thoughts. It's not so much about putting everything in a sunny frame all the time, but it's putting it in a more positive mind frame or frame of thinking, so that you can focus on overcoming the challenge or the stress or the anxiety, is reframing it to a more positive mindset. Finally, another important way to cope during this time is just pacing yourself. Understand your limits and boundaries you set in both your personal and professional life. Knowing what you can handle, knowing what you can take on. I think, Janet, you certainly touched on this in some of your slides, is understanding some of the mind-body connection. So when you're feeling anxious, paying attention to those biological mechanisms that are the heart palpitations, the stomach, the upset stomach, those biological things that you feel within your body. That's when you know that you need to maybe slow it down, take a step back, take some personal time. So certainly, pacing yourself and really respecting yourself by setting your limits and your boundaries.
Laura, I had just made a comment about maybe staying away from the news every once in a while, maybe putting the phone down. I'm trying to do better. That's my goal for 2021, is to maybe not go to sleep and the first thing I do is look at my phone. Like, I'm trying to go to bed, yet I'm reading the news. And what happens is with those news apps, you read an article and then you pick up the phone the next day and they curate those other articles about the same thing. So you're seeing the same sort of articles over and over again. And it tends to, it's tough for me to go to bed when I think, I'm in the bed, but I'm not really sleeping because my heart is racing, because my mind is going, that type of thing. So the phone really, I think, adds to it because you can do everything from your phone.
That's a good point. And also, you just, it gets you in that negative space. You're part of thinking positively or improving your overall health and wellness emotionally is reducing that negative space, those negative thoughts. And if you're surrounding and immersed in it, you're never really able to move on from it. You're going to be stuck in that negative space, and it's going to be a challenge for you to cope.
Okay, Nick, we just lost your screen.
Okay, great.
There we go.
Okay, so
Sorry, I was trying a different mode for a second.
no problem. Okay, so finally, something else that another way to cope is positive self-talk. Forgiving yourself. Your desire to make positive changes begins with accepting your faults. When I think of that, when I think of this, it's all about you need to take care of yourself before you take care of anybody else or anybody, relevant in your life. You need to change starts with you, a positive self-image, and your emotional health is important for you. So sometimes it's not easy around the holidays. We carry these burdens, these regrets, these lost connections of people, and certainly we want to. It's time for you to say, it's time to move on. You have to let it go and in order for you to move on and make changes positively in your life, you need to forgive yourself. Kicking perfection to the curb. I mean, if you can believe that you don't have to be perfect, you're going to alleviate a lot of stress and accumulated tension in your life. That this is especially true around the holidays. Whether we're having that big family gathering or we're having a small gathering, the whole, a lot of the ceremonies and rituals and things, we go back to, the way, our ideal Christmas, or what our ideal family looked like during the holiday season. And maybe we've had some losses this year, or maybe we've had some changes in, being able to put together a big holiday celebration, obviously because of the pandemic. It's you let go. So you have to work to let go some of those ideals that you have, and embrace either a new norm or a more positive way of looking at the situation. So if you can't be around a lot of family this year, you can't have that big family gathering, make this one the best one yet, and doing on a different scale and doing something different. Labeling and naming your feelings. I know, Janet, you touched on this, and this is very, very important. Janet was talking about the importance of identifying those feelings, or using the actual feeling words that helps you to feel. When you feel angry and frustrated, disturbed, betrayed, identifying those feelings and naming them really helps understand why you're acting the way you do, or why you're interacting in certain ways with people, or why why you see changes in your in your daily interactions with people. Bob, Susie, sure, or sadness, frustration, anger, too. Thank you for Nick. Other ways to cope is just positive self-talk, positive affirmations. Sometimes seeing positive words or inspiring images can be enough to redirect your thoughts. Again, this is just reducing the negative energy in our lives, being around more positive thinking and more positive mindsets that, I think that it's helpful to embrace when you see positive words, positive pictures, positive images around you. It just gets that negative self-talk, those negative images out of your head. reframing a negative thought into a positive or a more neutral stance is also something to consider. And going right to a positive is very hard at times, especially when we're angry. So, give yourself a break and just try to create a more neutral stance instead of like a negative thought into a more neutral stance. Instead of this is saying that this is impossible, I'm never going to be able to make this happen. Think of it in a more neutral way. Well, it's possible if I do this now, or if I plan ahead like that, or if I have that level of support and I ask for it. So certainly wanting to acknowledge and reframe or take out the negative thoughts, and it's a lot of work to pay attention to that, to get at your negative thought cycle and to step out of it, or to like I say, reframe it into a more neutral or positive stance. So one of the questions that I wanted to open up to everyone was, what are some daily routines that you do now that include positive self-talk? Is there anything that we do now that helps us get through something through self-talk, or helping us get through a struggling or challenging situation? And I think a lot of these strategies are practice. And the more and more you practice these things, the more and more natural and rote it's going to become. But it does take a lot of work to start actually changing some of the way you think about things.
I would say that I definitely will say I'll actually say out loud, or at least in my head, take a breath. When I'm getting frustrated, I can't open the cap on something, or something small that's sort of my cup is about to runneth over. I'm going to explode for some silly reason. And I'll catch myself and I'll say, take a breath, and sort of kind of put it in perspective right at that moment. So look quickly a few steps ahead to say, it's not worth it. It's not worth to get angry over this thing,
Right.
Daisy's writing in the chat, I meditate every morning.
Mm-hmm. That's refreshing to hear. It's work. It's ongoing work on your own emotional self, and also a consciousness of where you are now and what you're doing now. Some of the patterns that you've been getting into with the negative talk or the negative space. It requires you to really kind of hone in on what you've been doing and what kinds of things you may need to start looking at or considering in terms of changing your thought processes to get into a more positive headspace.
Personally, these are all things that I don't do that I probably should do for, better mental health and positivity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's commitment and it's work. Sometimes you might not be motivated to. I mean, you stick with what you know or what you've been doing, and sometimes what was happened in the past to me personally is somebody's called me out on it. Gosh, you're so negative, or you always go this way, and so that's insightful to me to get perspective or feedback or insight from other people around me. So I'm thankful for close friends that tell me the truth. I think Janet made a comment about how she likes to run. That's very helpful too. And actually with the running, especially outside, you're activating a lot more things that you mentioned in your talk about, the sunlight, the fresh air, that will also get those endorphins and those serotonin levels stabilized too. That helps make you feel more refreshed. Okay, so ways to cope physical well-being. The exposure to nature and light is shown to boost mood, improve attention, and improve sleep. This is very, important. We mentioned in Jenna's presentation about light therapy, vitamin D levels, and exposure to light is proven to boost overall mood and affect. And I think that is very, very important. So always trying to make sure that those windows are open, and getting as much light in as possible is very important. Balanced nutrition and the food mood connection. This is very important. There are many emotional experiences associated with food. Food is, associated with comfort and in different emotional states, but food can also be, tied into a stronger relationship, which impacts your body processes, such as digestion, and one example of this is something like heartburn. When you're depressed, you might suffer from heartburn. When you're anxious, you suffer from diarrhea. So there are a lot of food mood connections that are important to capture, and realize that feeding your brain is fundamental to your mood. Your brain is the boss. So when you feed your brain, that brain will help you manage a lot of your biological mechanisms, but also your emotional mechanisms. It's crucial that you eat healthy in order for you to maintain optimal emotional and physical well-being. So 5 good foods to add to your diet. So some of the most some foods that are proven to boost mood are dark chocolate. Some studies suggest that it can be good for you to have dark chocolate, as it has a positive impact on mood, and of course being mindful about portion, but it can be very good for you to have a positive impact on your mood. Fish high in fiber, fish high in omega-3 fatty acids, very important in heart health, but also helpful in alleviating a lot of depression, anxiety, and also boosting mood. Low glycemic carbohydrates, they include like high fiber fruits and vegetables, leafy greens, whole grains, to get those blood sugars elevated, and to release glucose in the bloodstream. All of these things are just more evidence to show about the mind-body connection, that the food that you put in, you get back, you get out, and you certainly, it pays off, because you're more attentive, you feel more calm, and all of these foods boost have biological mechanisms that include that raise the blood sugar, that get that produce energy and reduce fatigue, and also stabilize mood swings. Nuts, almonds, and walnuts, great snack, and very important. They also increase blood sugar levels when combined with carbohydrates. They have a high level of serotonin in them, which, as Janet just discussed, is a brain chemical that helps regulate the mood, by helping us keep relaxed and happy. So other fruits and vegetables, a recommendation of, as up to 7 to 8 a day will help you actually feel more happy or energetic in your daily life. So when you put the good food in, you get good out. And tips to combat emotional eating. Some tips are taking your time, pacing yourself, eating slowly. Also, after your meal, before you go on to an activity, like actually try to stay centered and quiet for, or calm, without engaging in an activity to help with the digestion. Because sometimes what happens is we eat we eat our meal, and then, we stand up, start moving around, and then we are indulged to start to continue to eat because we're moving around or we're utilizing energy, but we might not be properly digesting our full meal. So it would be helpful to actually stay seated and in a relaxed kind of state after your meal to make sure that all your food is digested before you determine that you're hungry again and need to start eating again. Also, this is sometimes challenging, especially in a house full of kids, but never eat when you are upset. I know that's sometimes very challenging for me. But certainly acknowledging that, your meal time is an important time for yourself, and for you to kind of regroup, re-nourish yourself, and take in those nutrients that is needed for you to, kind of feel better emotionally and physically. Another tip was always sit down to eat, which I think is better now that I'm not in the field as much. But certainly, sitting down and eating and in rest instead of eating on the go, I think also helps with the digestion process and helps with, feeling that, helps you absorb your food and your nutrients more fully. Okay. Physical well-being is other ways to cope through stressors in life and especially around the holiday season. Incorporating exercise. Physical activity promotes chemicals in the brain that improve your mood and make you feel more relaxed. So, Janet, you mentioned the running. Those when you're running, those hormones that are getting out of whack, like the serotonin and the melatonin, all of that produces, helping you, getting you to run and do a physical activity, whether it's inside or outside the home, will help you feel more relaxed and help you be able to better cope with some of the stress. This is another important feature component is sleep. Lack of sleep can contribute to repetitive negative thoughts that may contribute to more negatively, for you to more negatively react, which adversely impacts relationships, your outlook, and your performance. And again, this goes back to kind of getting stuck in that negative headspace. If you're not sleeping, you're on edge, and you may not be able to react, may impair your ability to react more appropriately to certain situations, and that can in turn impact your relationships, outlook and things like that. So getting a good amount of sleep remains very, very important. Again, something that's not easy to do at times, but acknowledging that this is we're all works in progress. And maybe these are things that we can put on the New Year's resolution list and start working on, to help improve our physical well-being. So one of the questions that I wanted to pose out to everybody today was just, what are some tools and strategies you might consider adding to your current ways to cope? There's a lot of different things that, we might want to consider that aren't working for us now. So how we're currently coping, whether maybe it's working for the immediate situation, but maybe it's not good for us long term. Or maybe we need to think of things that are more accessible to us. Because how you cope is your toolkit. When you get anxious or, you start feeling, getting in a negative headspace, you need these tools kind of at the ready. So you need tools and strategies that you kind of have in the side pocket that you can very easily tap into so that you can alleviate a lot of that anxiety and stress that you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura, I just wanted to kind of add to that as well. You know, it's really essential when we talk about your emotional and your physical and your mental health well-being. It's really all about tailoring to you, right? And it's not reminding yourself that it's not just one size fit all. So what might work for me might not work for Laura or Carlene or Nick. You know, everyone is different. And it's really just understanding your body, what are your limits, and what are the things that is very accessible for you. So for me, it might be running, but for Laura, it might be finding something that she can do in the comfort of her home that's different for her circumstance and it fits for you. And knowing that it's going to vary from person to person and it's also going to vary from month to month. So you should always be changing and feeling like it's okay to evolve as you go. What works this month might not work in February of 2021. You know, time is going to change things, and as humans, we're supposed to be evolving and changing, and that's a good thing. So what might be working now in the winter time during the holidays might not essentially be working come August or September or even, you know, in March during the time where the weather's a little bit different and you might be responding differently because of certain things in life that are happening. So it might be doing little things like Laura mentioned, like stretching or walking or just getting up and moving and having a range of motion, something that you can take out of your handy dandy grab bag and utilize wherever you are. Because when mental health happens, it can happen anywhere, right? It doesn't discriminate to people, places, and things. It's really all about you knowing who you are and what services and resources that you have and how you can utilize them. And then some tips for our PHP members. At PHP, we do have an array of providers and services that can really support our members with their mental and physical and emotional well-being. So some services are psychotherapy services. We have an array of within network providers that conduct not just site-based services, but also in-home services. A list of behavioral health services, also crisis prevention and response services, and as well as, you know, an array of respite services. So it's really important that you reach out to your care coordination team here at PHP and connect with them to really ensure that you find the right service that you would be eligible for and that fits towards your life. You know, it might be a combination of a multitude of things, but it might just be one or two things in the now that works for you. So it's really essential that you reach out to your care coordination team and just ask about the services that PHP offers and how you can be best connected and supported.
Okay. And some of the important takeaways that, that we want to bring home for today's presentation is self-awareness. On top of our day-to-day stressors, the holiday season can add additional stress to our already busy lives. It is important for us to pay attention and understand our limits so we can initiate healthy coping strategies. And this is very important for us to be able to be self-aware of when we're getting to a point where we're not, we're overwhelmed or stressed. So paying attention to those, whether or not they're, things that you're doing, how you're behaving, or how, something that you're doing, or it's like something biological, something medical that's going on, that we should be paying attention to these signs and being very self-aware of our bodies in order to activate, appropriate emotional coping strategies. Understanding the symptoms, knowledge is the power of implementing a good plan. If you know the symptoms, you know the signs and things that you're looking for, then you're going to be able to put into place the supports and services that you need. Consider the emotional wellness occurs when you can adapt and regulate your feelings during times of stress and understanding its impact on your health. So this is very important. As mentioned, we want to be able to not only understand what's causing us stress or what's causing us duress, it's understanding, that these things need to be managed because they have a very direct impact on our overall health and well-being, not just our emotional headspace. So we really do want to pay attention to things that and be able to like Janet mentioned, wanting to tap into, have as a, having the appropriate coping strategy, at the ready, so that we can adapt and regulate our feelings. And finally, acknowledging your need to seek out help and support and stating you deserve it. Sometimes it's hard for us to acknowledge that we are worthy, we are deserving, we are, important people. We're important to ourselves, we're important to our families, we're important to our, our colleagues and to the members that we serve. We are an important part of this world. And if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't take care of your medical, your medical and your emotional health, then it's almost like a disservice to the world, because you're not all there. You're not all with us. So we want everybody to activate and initiate the appropriate coping strategies so that we can all continue to do our good work on this world.
And then this is just where you can get some more additional information. So as Laura mentioned, really ensuring that you are well for you, right? You matter. And everyone that you interact with in this world benefits from you being at your 100% best. So you might not always feel like that every day. And these are just some useful resources that you can utilize to tap in as you go. And everyone is going to be different. So there's some various links from NYC Health. NYC Well Today. They have a free connection that's confidential services. You can do phone or text. There's services like a Talkspace. There's Long Island Crisis Center, where it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, live online mobile chat. There's a response crisis team that also have a hotline available 24/7. There's a veterans crisis line. We know that everyone serves in different capacities, as well as articles and tips to help you get through experiencing nervous breakdowns and various ways to look at effective self-care techniques. We know that mental health can strike whenever, right? So it doesn't discriminate towards the daytime or holidays or even just around, special occasions that can happen whenever at any time. So it's important to have some resources at your tips where you can reach out to a professional, you can speak to someone that's safe and it's confidential, and you can really be transparent. And I'm emphasizing the aspect of transparency. When you come in and you speak with your doctor or your mental health profession, they can only help you based off the information that you give them. So know that that's a safe space where there's no judgment, and you can be as transparent about what you're feeling, not just here, but also on the outside as well. And your doctor or your mental health professional can kind of put 2 and 2 together and identify what would be the best next steps for you. But it all comes back to really understanding and feeling safe to reach out, and then having some resources at your tips. So if anyone has any questions, I know our wonderful marketing team will do a great job about sharing some of the resources that we have and really ensuring that, it's tailored towards you. Mental health isn't one size fit all. So this is really ensuring that you have something grabbable at your hands, that if something happens and you're feeling alone or you're not feeling safe, that there is a safe space that you can reach out to someone.
Ladies, thank you so much for speaking today. We definitely want to move, like we said in January, to a sort of battling the winter blues, maybe taking a lot of the information that you shared today and enhancing it and tailoring it towards that. And perhaps we can ask you ladies to come back and help us out with that. And we're looking for February, which is Cardiac Health Month, to do a presentation regarding heart health. So you definitely helped us today, Laura and Janet, on thinking about both our minds, our hearts, and our bodies, right? And the mind-body connection in particular, and to stay safe and healthy as much as possible and where we are, and to treat ourselves where we are, and to actually treat ourselves well, which you did say throughout today's presentation.
We deserve it.
Yes, exactly. We deserve it. So thank you, ladies, for that. For those of you joining us, we'll be definitely putting this up on our website, and hope to see you next time on our next learning table. Thanks again, Janet and Laura.
Thank you, Carlene.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
bye.
it.
Thank you.